So this is my, I don't know, 1970. I have no idea what year this bike was. Apollo looks like it's an SR5, but this is my step through townie bike.
Now, what you need to know about me is that I am a mountain biker, and as with most mountain bikers, I have a fleet of bikes very specifically designed for the purpose of mountain biking. And that's left a bit of a hole in my roster these last couple of years where I kind of haven't had anything even remotely like this. So I'm going to start off with components and how this bike was built up before getting into the reasons why it has become my absolute favorite. Feel free to use timestamps.
I found this bike in a dumpster. The intention was that I would build it up. It would be for Melissa. She'd be able to use it. But I do find that I end up riding it probably more than she does. Immediately, there were some apparent things that were going to have to change with it. Most notably, the wheels. They're steel wheels. They're completely corroded.
So this bike frame is an old 27¼ bike frame, but because it's a steel frame, we can do something called cold setting, which allows us to accommodate a modern hub standard. So once the frame has been modified, we can then fit a 650B or 700C wheel depending on your frame clearance.
It actually took me quite a long time to find a 27.5 rim brake wheel set, and that probably is no surprise. It's a bit of a weird combination of standards. This was the only rim brake set of tires or wheels that I could find for a reasonable cost. I spent 300 Canadian dollars on these. I ordered them online. They're from 49 North, but the 27.5s fit in 27¼ frames fabulously, and they're actually slightly smaller, I think. So you end up actually getting more space for tire clearance. I wanted to do a 1x10 cassette in the back just for a little bit more range. The original gearing, it was on a 5-speed. And so it was just like really with the size of the, I think it's a 42 in the front or something like that, with that gear ratio. For some of the hills, it was just a pain in the ass. So being able to put a 36 on in the back and friction shift 10-speed without having to do anything to the original dummy is actually incredible. Friction shifting is fully blowing my mind. I think because I've really predominantly in my life only ever had index shifting, coming back to friction, I was like, this is gonna be bullshit. And it's not. It's amazing. For something that isn't a performance bicycle, like what do you need indexing for? It does not matter at all. And that I was able to use the original 5-speed friction shifter and have the range to operate a 10-speed cassette without any problems is mind-blowing to me. But this derailleur is actually super cool. It's an old Shimano Rapid Rise, which means that it lives in the easiest gear all of the time. And then as you tension it, it pulls the car, or it pulls the chain outboard to get into a harder and harder gear, which makes a lot of sense to me. But it's just a really cool piece of technology and one that I would not have encountered given that I got into cycling later in life, just because it was so far past its prime by the time I got involved in the sport. The only way I'm going to come across something like this in a modern setting is by stumbling across it in a bike co-op, and that's exactly what I did. Now, all of those changes really amounted to very little cost. I think I'm 500 bucks Canadian in on this bike. Most of the parts I just got from my local bike co-op. It's been a really chill kind of building process. We've been chipping away at it for a couple of years, and I tried to reuse as much of the original components as possible. So to make sure that I could get the most out of them, all I took was a little bit of like 3-in-1 oil, like just a penetrating rust release oil, and then went ahead and polished everything up with like 4/0 steel wool, and it cleaned up beautifully. And I think it looks stellar considering its age and the fact that it had lived the bulk of its life outside, eventually ending up in a dumpster. So this bike has become my favorite bike, I think, for a number of reasons. Obviously, I love putting time into projects, and being able to spend time bringing this bike back to life was incredibly rewarding and something that I would 100% do again and again and again. This is how I spend my weekends now. I spend my weekends on this bike, going to get ice cream, going to get coffee, out with the girl, just having an amazing summer. And it was a part of my summer life that I wasn't really living the last couple of years because I had so much money invested in my higher performance mountain bikes. I don't want to leave those locked up anywhere ever for any amount of time. Bike crime in my city is appallingly bad. But these guys, I can lock them up anywhere. I don't really have to care. They're not really something that people are going to target. And to be fair, if they do get it, like, wasn't really that much money out of my pocket anyway. It blows my mind that this is my favorite bike, but it's just allowed me to kind of explore cycling in a very different way, to spend more time leisurely enjoying a sport that I think I typically associate with like a really high intensity and even some risk, some adrenaline. To be able to just get on a bike and spend time socially, or to go get groceries and not have to worry about my bike disappearing when I'm in the store, it's actually amazing. It's been really freeing, and I don't know why it took me this long to come back to sort of having, I'm not gonna call it a beater because I actually love this bike way too much for that, but coming back to having a town bike that I can use, that it genuinely puts a smile on my face every single time I take this bike out of the shed. You'll notice in the front triangle here, there is no triangle shape anywhere. It's not a particularly stiff bike. There's a lot of forgiveness here. So while you're riding around, man, it is an incredibly supple ride. It's the smoothest ride I've ever experienced on a bike, to be perfectly frank, which is one of those things that just keeps me coming back. I've been shocked at what I can get away with and have this bike feel really comfortable. It's the most upright position that I've ever been in on a bike, which is also very trendy in the mountain bike world right now. So yeah, if you don't have something like this kicking around the house for very little money, if you've got a couple extra bucks kicking around and you've been thinking about exploring some different aspects of cycling, maybe a little bit less serious aspects of it, you've got my endorsement. Go enjoy it. Go dig through some used parts bins and build yourself something kind of special. Make it yours. We'll see you later.